introduced in 2016. Anyway, in Canada, in 2015 2016 time frame, they started delivery in the US market, and in 2016 they started pick up by the curb in Canadian stores. Okay, so what that means is now from nothing, their website becomes, right, a revenue generating. Okay, the same with Air Canada. The Air Canada website is now revenue generating. You cannot survive this, guys. If the Walmart website fails, Amazon takes over. You don't believe that? Go back to every year. There's a Cyber Monday deal in the U.S. It's the Monday after the Thanksgiving, right? So look at the retail activity online. Okay, in 2015, 30% of that was taken up by Amazon, right? Which was $3 billion. 30% all went to Amazon. Okay, and we're just talking about the impact of the IT scenario here. Okay, so let me wrap it up for you. Everything that you see here is going to be discovered by Universal Discovery in the background. If you have APM, BSM, if you're more familiar with BSM or APM, APM, BSM, SiteScope will discover the front end, right? So APM, BSM will discover the front end. Uh, Universal Discovery will discover the back end. So I can assure you that if I invest $1 billion here and I buy all the monitoring requirements that Micro Focus Products has, I will discover everything that supports this infrastructure in the background, right? So to make sure that I have my my cache, my whatever I need to, what do you call that, the it's at the tip of my uh mind right now, but anyway. Okay, so you have that. So what do we need to do? Well, there's a catch, right? We need to model this. So we need to know the parts. So Universal Discovery discovers everything in the background. I need to know the parts. Okay? You have two options. You have APM. Okay? So over here you have APM. See APM here? Okay? Which is part of our application performance management, which is originally known as BSM. Okay? Now, if you look at OBM and BSM or APM, it has RTSM, right? It has RTSM. If you look at if you look at um, BSM, go to admin, you will see RTSM here as well. Now, what is RTSM again? RTSM is actually a lightweight version of UCMDB. Okay? RTSM is a lightweight version of UCMDB. Well, why not just call it UCMDB, right? Why not just call it UCMDB Lite or UCMDB Express? If it's a lightweight version of UCMDB, why call it RTSM? Okay? Why call it RTSM in OBM? Okay. Well, here's the catch. In OBM, RTSM doesn't mean a thing. Okay? In OBM, honestly speaking, RTSM is just a word. It's just a name. Okay? It's just a name. Why is it just a name? It contains a database. What do I mean by that, Roberto? Okay? Well, RTSM stands for, why not just call it UCMDB Express? Because it stands for Runtime Service Modeling or Runtime Service Model. Okay? Back in the days, it was also known as Real-Time Service Model. It was used interchangeably. Okay? But why call it Runtime Service Model when it's the lightweight version of UCMDB? In OBM, it doesn't make sense to call it RTSM actually, right? Why? Because it doesn't do anything for you. But the moment you put APM into the mix, the moment you put application performance management into the mix, okay, it makes sense why it's called RTSM. Why? Because in APM, you have two components called end user management and system availability management. Okay? Look, you don't see under administration, you don't see those two options, right? You don't see system availability management and end user management here, right? So you have end user management and you have system availability management. What is end user management and system availability management? System availability management is actually site scope integration with APM. End user management is BPM and RUM or RUM. BPM and RUM can discover this. BPM and RUM can discover the front end. If BPM and RUM can discover the front end, then you discover the service offerings that you offer to your customers, isn't it? If it can discover the front end, you're basically saying, well, my work is maybe a third quarter done, right? My work is 75% done because application performance management can discover the front end. So the modeling, the parts that I require is already known. APM can discover the URLs here. It can discover the URLs. You can go through each and every page here, and APM via BPM can discover it for you. So since you can discover it, you can say that this is my service offering. So I would treat that as a business CI. In fact, that's what's going to happen. Okay, APM will discover a business entity for you. APM will go out there and discover that business entity for you. Okay? That's going to be part of end user management. So after it discovers that, it saves that into the lightweight version of UCMDB. Since it discovered the services for you at runtime, that's why it's called the runtime service modeling. Right? So it's called the runtime service modeling. OBM doesn't have that capability. So OBM doesn't have that capability. OBM does not have the capability to discover those front end services for you. Okay? It doesn't have that particular capability. So you might ask, then why is it still called RTSM? Because of architecture, uh, uh, technical architecture, right? Back in the days, the APM and the OBM are on the same binary distribution all the way until version 9. When OMI 10 came out, OMI can now work on its own and be installed on its own. So it is not dependent on APM anymore. Okay, so that's why it's still called RTSM here. So a lot of functionalities that you see here, a lot of the interface that you see here are actually based on APM and not necessarily OBM. Okay? So having said that, if you have APM, you can say that in terms of websites, in terms of web pages, in terms of your online store, online presence, APM can discover the services for you. Okay? But we're not in OBM. We're in we're not in APM, we're in OBM. So in OBM, you can create your own models. Okay? In OBM, you can create your own models. You don't need to uh, use APM here. So if you want to create your own models, you need to go to ArtSM. So I'm going to be demonstrating here, guys. Okay? I prefer a demonstration here, so it's going to be more interesting. Okay? So how do you create models in OBM? Keep in mind that when you're creating models, you're simply creating a business entity. Okay? So if you're new to RTSM, just follow my lead. Okay? Keep in mind that I don't want you to get confused. The CIs and their relationships already exists. Okay? So modeling does not require us to uh, modeling does not require us to create the configuration items. Okay. Unfortunately, I closed the tab from yesterday, so now it has to load again. It's taking a little bit of time, so it's gonna be worth the wait, guys. So just be a little bit more patient here. There we go. Okay. So in modeling, the configuration items are already there. Okay. So in modeling, the configuration items are already there. So modeling, okay, is basically creating a business CI. If you don't create a business CI, you don't need to model. Let me repeat. If you don't create a business CI, you don't need to model. So how do you create a model? Just go here. Okay. You have two options: instance based and pattern based. Okay. Instance based is, I'll use the instance base for now. Okay. You select instance base. You select what model, what CI type you like. This is an ITIL definition. So follow your ITIL know-how. You can go business service. You can go business function. I'll use business service. I call this Air Canada, right? So we will be in line with, okay. So we will be in line with our discussion a while ago, right? So this is a business service. Read the ITIL books if you want to know what the other options are. So what have I created here? I've created a business service, a business CI, right? In instance based, I basically I basically select the CIs that I want. I just select it. Where is it? I just select it and drag and drop it. Okay. In order for me to offer Air Canada, I need the S01 server. Okay? I need the S10 server. You see what I'm doing here? I'm just dragging and dropping. I'm defining the parts that I need for Service Canada offering. Okay? Isn't this too much work, Roberto? Well, if you have APM, okay, then it will be automatic for you, right? Well, what if I don't have APM? It's gonna be too much work, Roberto. Well, you gotta ask the Airbus folks, guys. Look at this. The Airbus engineers came up with a list. We can't really we can't really complain with that, right? So this guy's created a list. You're only on your you're only on your second CIs, okay? And it's too much work already, okay? If you go to SpaceX right now, I'm pretty sure they have parts for every item that went into that rocket, right? If you go to NASA right now, I'm pretty sure they have parts for the Perseverance rover. ITIL demands that we need to follow the same thing. Okay? This has been part of ITIL books. So remember when they came out with ITIL, they interviewed the industry and collected the best practices. That's why ITIL is not a standard, it's a best practices, right? So the writers of ITIL interviewed the British military, the British companies, right? In order for them to find out what's the best way to manage technology, including the aviation industry. Okay, so that's why they came up with modeling. Okay, so that's why they came up with modeling. But it was very difficult for us to implement. So I'm repeating myself, right? So in uh, in instance-based modeling, I just drag and drop the ones that I like. Then you realize what have I dragged and dropped? Well, at the moment I have dragged and dropped servers. Do I want to include IP addresses into that mix? What do you think? If the IP address is a CI, should I put that as part of the Air Canada model? If you feel like you're doing too much, look at the MMEL. Okay. Remember the Qantas flight. If you watch Dangerous Flights, there was a Qantas flight from Singapore to Sydney, and it was during when they first launched Airbus A380, right? So 20 minutes into the flight, one of the engines exploded and it damaged the wings. So the pilots went back to Singapore, and fortunately they were able to land the aircraft. So they research, right? Everybody's involved. And you know what the problem was? They they used so after their investigation, they discovered that they used a bolt that is off by a few thousands of millimeters. That was the culprit, right? So it was off. There was a manufacturing error for that particular bolt. Imagine that, right? So a bolt. How many thousands of bolts do you think an Airbus A380 will have? A lot. We're only on our fourth item here, so we don't have the the right to complain at this point. So move along, Roberto. Move along. Okay, so I'll drag my feet. Should I put maybe file systems here? Maybe CPU? Should I put CPUs here? Okay, why not? Sure, I'll put CPUs there. So I just add this. The beauty of this, guys, is right. While you're doing all of this, the person doing this does not need to be familiar with the database schema. Okay? That's the beauty of UCMDB. I don't need to know the database schema. Okay? So within the HP world, Microfocus world, we had a lot of products that would allow us to generate reports, extract data, but most of the time we need to be familiar with the database schema. We have performance insight, okay, and all those things. Okay, so not knowing or not being required to be familiar with the database schema is a big deal. Okay, so what does that mean? The person who's dragging and dropping configuration items in the business model does not need to be a technical person. I don't need to be a very technical person here. So the person who's dragging and dropping here can be service managers, configuration managers, okay? IT managers who, originally were IT folks, but now changing responsibilities, okay? Operators, architects. So this is a an ongoing configuration, right? So I can pick this up today, sleep, pick it up the next day, sleep, and then add as new configuration items are discovered. Okay? So the granularity of what you can put here, the granularity of what you can put here is amazing. For example, okay, I'm going to use this. Look at this. I'm going to drag and drop APM. I'm going to drag and drop the APM node, right? So I'm going to drag and drop the APM node. But what can you say about the APM node? It has two interface cards. Okay? I drag one interface card and I drag, and what can you say? It has two IP addresses. I drag one IP addresses or one IP address. What did I show you? I'm only going to select the CIs that is associated with the model. I don't need to select the CIs that's not associated with the model. Okay? This is dragging and dropping. This is called instance base. Instance base is you drag and drop, okay? You drag and drop the configuration item that you like. The problem with that is it doesn't change. It's static. So sometimes we would like to use the pattern base. In pattern base, we use a query. Okay? In pattern base, we use a query. Okay? So it can change. Right? So I now have a query here. I basically just type node, drag and drop node. Okay? That's the CI type. Take note, I'm not creating relationships here. I'm extracting relationships. Okay? I'm extracting relationships. Okay? So this is a UCMDB function, guys. So our primary purpose here is to just show you how configuration items are and modeling are created. Okay? So I now have that relationship. Remember the MySQL relationship that we had, right? Okay, then I can select this if I wanted to, right? So I now have that. Okay, I now have that. I can also go in and maybe save this, right? So I can save this, and I can call this the okay. I can call this the Walmart service or Walmart model, right? So I can click that. So I now have a model for Walmart. My Walmart model contains a node and the SQL Server. I can add additional queries later on. Okay, I can add additional queries later on. Now models cannot be viewed. Models cannot be viewed. Models should be viewed by a view. So you need to create, okay? You need to create a view for the model if you needed to, okay? So you may want to create a perspective-based view, okay? So in a perspective-based view, you put here the models that you would like to show. You see Walmart here? Where's Walmart? You see Walmart there, the one that I've just created? I just drag and drop Walmart here. Then I can as you could see, right? This is the model for Walmart. Okay. Then I save this. I can call this the Walmart model view. So models cannot be accessed directly. So you need to create a view for the model. But view for models cannot be created directly. You need to put it in together with a perspective, right? So that's why it's called a perspective-based view. So I click OK here. I can click OK there, and now I have that view for my model. Okay. So what now? Well, after I create the view, I can now go to, okay. After I create the view, I can now go to my event perspective. Okay. I can go to my event perspective. Okay. Select the view. Okay. So you see the Walmart model. Okay. The Walmart model will now contain the CIs. You see that? This Walmart here is the business service, and it contains Orion and the web order. Okay. I can see, right? All the events associated with that service is going to be consolidated there. So if I go back to our discussion for the Walmart here, you can now monitor this Walmart website independently of others. And you will see your all events associated with that website. Now, you might say, "Hey Roberto, can't I just use this as a filter or something?" Yes. You can create an ordinary filter and the like, okay? But this is much better in terms of organization because since this is a query, it is dynamic, so it moves along. Okay, so if what that means is if you migrate web order to another server, the model view will change together with the events. Does that make sense? So the view will change together with the events. If you include that in your DevOps continuous integration, continuous continuous delivery, business processes. This will be more in line with that. Okay, guys, you do not need to limit it to the CIs that you see on the screen. It can include every part that you can imagine. IP addresses, CPUs, interface cards, ports, okay? Everything that is considered a configuration item, you can put in here and manage it accordingly as far as events are concerned. And you're doing it all from Operations Bridge Manager. Okay. Now the question to you is, do you do it in OBM? What if I have will forward OBM here? Okay. So normally in OBM we don't create the models directly, but we consume data provided in RTSM and UCMDB. What I'd like you to remember though is the fact that whatever they do there affects you. For example, you have a health perspective. Remember health perspective? Okay? Under health perspective, what do you get? You see View Explorer. When you create the view for your model, it will appear here. So your users can focus on your users can focus on what affects them. Okay? So over here you can select the Walmart view as the top view. It's not declared yet, so we have to declare the view for the model. Okay? But you can put the Walmart view there and you will see the hierarchy. Okay? So now the point of all of this, what's the point of all of this? The point of all of this is to associate your events for the service that it will impact. Okay? So my imagination will be, if I am going to build the model for service for Air Canada, this will be one model, or this could be one business function. So everything that I see here, so I'll create a model for flights, I create a model for vacations, car, and so on, right? Why? Because if I go to flight, okay, I go here. So if any one of these fields are not working, I'll be in a big trouble. Okay? So if I go to Walmart, I may model this account as a business function. Okay? I can have a cart that is another model. Okay, and everything that I see here can be different business functions. So if there will be any problem that I encounter in the background for monitoring purposes, it's not through it's not going to be through infrastructure elements anymore. So we want to go away, and we want to move away, rather. We want to move away from, you know, an event management system telling you that you have a problem with the node. Right? So imagine an event management system telling you, "Hey Roberto, node 1 is down." Right? So what's the first thing that comes into your mind? So what if it's down? Okay. Should I care if that particular node is down? Okay? With this, you can you can pretty much take advantage of all the features and associate it with the modeling, right? And one of the things that you know, guys, that you need to capture there is the ability to define the granularity that will work for you. Okay, you can you can stick with just nodes, or you can stick with a very complex list. UCMDB can relate anywhere from 100 to 800 configuration items per node. That's how much it can capture. So the amount of the model that you have will be dependent on how much data you have. So I have
Oh.
customers in UCMDB going from going from 600,000 CIs to 60 million configuration items. Okay? So that's the beauty of it. So sometimes when I hear customers, Roberto, we only put nodes in there. Honestly speaking, I feel a little bit sad, right? Because you're driving a Ferrari like how you would drive. Well, I don't want to name cars, okay? Because my car is a one of my car is a Toyota. One of my car is a Toyota Corolla, right? I don't mind mocking my car, right? But some of you guys might be driving the same thing, and you might uh, misinterpret what I'm trying to say. Okay, but that's the thing, right? So you want your car to be as well, you want your UCMDB to be as complete as possible. Okay. Okay, so I have to stop here because we have yes, that's right, Terry. Corolla in a van. Okay. The daddy car. Okay. Anyway, so that's one of the things that I like to show you, right? The rest, like the adding of configuration items and all of those things, you will learn that in your lab exercises. Uh, I can demo it to you, but at the end of the day, it will not replace whatever is in your lab exercises, right? So um, for the meantime, I will stop here with my lecture. I will give you time to do the labs. Okay, so it's gonna be lab 9. All right. So what are we going to put here? Maybe 60 minutes. Okay. So I'll put a timer of 60 minutes. And if you need time, let me know. I can extend the timer, right? So we have a bit of a time to give. But the lab exercises are long. Okay, so you will learn there how to create. If this is your first time, you will learn there how you create models and views and equals and such. So if this is your first time, guys, let me know, right? It might be very challenging for this one because this is a totally different product. Creating models is actually a UCMDB thing, right? And you can ask my students in UCMDB. It's a 5-day course. Okay, so I'll leave you to it for the meantime. If you need my help, don't hesitate to call my attention so we can rectify it right away. Okay, so if you guys can hear me, I want to discuss something before we go for lunch break here. So if you can hear me now, let me know by raising your hand and we will get going. Thank you. So this is going to be the plan. The labs for this are extremely long, right? So the plan for me is I think it's better for us to um, discuss and then we'll discuss all the way to 12 noon. Okay. I think I will not be able to finish by 12 noon. Okay. Because if I'm going to force it, it will be 12:30, and I think that's too late for some of you already. So I'll just discuss as much as I can until 12, and then go for our lunch break, which is 50 minutes. Let's try 50 minutes for now, and then come back, do the remaining topic, and then do the lab exercises for another 70 minutes. Okay. So without any more delay, I'll discuss as much as I can until 12 noon. I will have an idea already if I can finish it before lunch. Okay. So I will have an idea by 12. Okay. So we'll see. Right. Okay. So in the next topic, we'll talk about health indicators, KPIs, KPI assignments, and this one. Personally, I don't know if I should discuss it now or after lab exercises. So this is the question that I want to ask later for from a planning standpoint. Okay, but these are all the skills that you need for your lab exercises. Okay, for your labs, this is all that you need. So if I can finish it before lunch, even better. Okay. So if I can finish it before lunch with maybe 10 minutes after 12 noon, that's better. So let's go and discuss what service health customization is. Okay, so in service health, let's review first what we talked about. We have service models. Okay, so we will have something like this already. Does that make sense, right? So you will create as many service models as you like. So you will have a hierarchy. So the plan for us moving forward is to spend a lot of time creating models. Okay, so remember yesterday when we talked about losing jobs, we're actually gaining jobs on this area. Okay, so we don't want to spend too much time on event processing, manual event processing. We want to focus on making sure that our IT services are properly functioning. Okay, because the micro focus tools are very capable, right? So a lot of customers have only touched the surface. One reason being is they are a little bit hesitant on, giving up on manual event processing. With which in reality, if you really put everything into perspective, we can, devote human resources to analyzing models, creating health indicators, creating KPIs, and all of those things. So now that we have a service model, we would like to associate and compute service health. Okay. So I'll go through the slides here, guys. By the way, we're gonna be very slide-ish for this module. It's very difficult to demonstrate this. We will be all over the place. So I'd rather use the slides here for for structure. Okay. So Service Health presents the health of the business service in a manner that is both comprehensive and targeted. That's what we're after. We don't want a catch all approach, right? The flight booking of Air Canada website will have different, requirements than other sections of the website. Okay? So so the flight booking will be, technically speaking, more important than hotel booking maybe, right? The flight booking might be will be definitely more important than other pages. So you don't want to treat them the same way. So the beauty of OBM is that in service health we can target individual service health and define our objectives for that, right? Service health receives status updates from a wide variety of data collectors. Okay? It calculates health of the business service based on health report supporting the components. Okay? We are not interested in nodes anymore. We are interested in components. If there are 10 file systems on a node, 3 of which are for our service, we only want to focus on the 3, not the other 7. Okay? And service self allows us to target that because we can identify the component. Presents each user with health summary for the services and underlying components in the area of responsibility. And you can drill down. Okay? So you have a wide variety of use cases there. We'll talk about some examples later on. Um, there are basically two types of views. When you create your hierarchy here, right? When you create your hierarchy and health indicators, you can make it global or you can make it local. Okay. Now, the thing here is, let me share to you what I so you don't pursue things that are not important to you. Okay? So right now you're looking at my RTSM for OBM. If you go to resource here, right? Click new. These are the things that you can create. Okay? Go here, click new. These are the things that you can create. This is in OBM. This is in OBM, right? You can go to operations, you can go to view, you can go to editor item, okay? You can go to tools, okay? You will not meet what the slide is talking about. If you go to APM, go to administration, go to service health in APM, okay? Go to view builder, okay? Go to view builder here, okay? Over here, you can create a new, what you call, where's that? This one. Uh, let me just refresh that. Oh, there you go. So you can create a new local impact view here, right? So in APM, you have that particular capability, but in OBM, you don't have that function. Okay. Well, what you can do, right? So even if you go there, you can go here. Okay. What you can do is if you really want to create, what you can do is if you really want to create local impact views, you can create it in APM and then move it over to OBM. But in terms of context, we normally use global views and local impact views only in the APM side. It doesn't really make sense to do it on the OBM side because in OBM side, remember, we're mostly dealing with events. Although we can capture metrics, but we're mostly dealing with events. Okay? So so at least you know. Remember that in OBM we can get information. We can get information from different collectors. Okay, including ops connector. So if that happens, you might need to define some of custom indicators. Okay, rules and processing. So this particular module 10, is going to show us the fundamental building blocks of service health. Okay, so the indicator repository for each CI type and KPIs. Okay, so and then you will talk about the rules, which is the calculation logic. Okay, and these are found in the rules repository. Okay, and you have two types of rules: business rules and propagation rules. Okay, so a lot of the topics that are being discussed on the slide will be covered by the primary interface. So don't worry about it. The things that I'm skipping, we'll talk about that in the next few slides. So first, health indicators. You have two types of HIs, okay? Events and metrics. Okay? OBM work with events. It can it can collect metrics, but that's another story. Okay. On the other hand, APM works with metrics. Okay. So our focus is when it comes to OBM, we're dealing with events, and when it comes to APM, we're dealing with metrics. Uh, OBM in OBM, you can treat events and include that as an HI, a health indicator. Remember, yesterday we talked about ETIs. Okay, an ETI can be an ETI or it can be an HI, which an HI is it includes an ETI. Okay, so in my demonstration yesterday, I created an HI for you called CoolSense, right, or cooling, and I change it, and you will notice that it appears in Service Health. Okay, health indicators health indicators can influence the state for the particular event. Okay, so so I'll read through the slide, guys. Each HI is tied to a specific CI type. Okay, you need to provide this attributes. Okay, HI definitions do not dictate which data collector affects the HI. Okay, meaning to say it can come from anywhere. And if you want to create new HIs, you follow this hierarchy, right? You follow that hierarchy. Um, there are a lot of out of the box HIs already, which you can use. So this is the general information for HIs. Okay, so let's learn how to create them. First, you design. You need to document the details of the HI that you're going to create. Okay, operating characteristics. So in this example, we're creating a humidity HI. Okay, and it has the following states: dry, wet, and no data status. Okay, dry HI is normal, wet is critical, no data is unknown. Okay, where are we going to get it from? We're going to get it from third party enterprise management event monitoring systems. Okay, it's an OPSCX integration. Since it is an OPSCX integration, okay, we need to create a policy. Well, we're not creating policy in this module, but I just want you to know that there is an OPSCX policy. Okay, an OPSCX policy can pull events from a database, and it can also pull metrics from a database. Okay, you can also pull metrics from a database. If you're pulling metrics from a database, there will be some numeric processing that you can use. So in this case, you will have maybe some units. Okay? If you're using OPSCX, sometimes we don't need OPSCX. We're only going to use default policy templates. In my example yesterday. So if that's the case, you're dealing with events only. So it doesn't really matter what metrics will be for that. Okay? So uh operations connector is really outside the coverage of this training. It's a totally different, I would say, animal. Okay, but I'll try my best to make it as clear as possible. But we cannot really pursue that much because otherwise your learning experience will really also suffer. You won't have the time to finish the lab exercises. So you design, you write it down. Okay, and then some additional information like default rule. Are you going to generate events? Formatting method if it's a metric, and document the details of the events. So let's create that. Okay. So you go to administration, service health, CI status calculation, health, and event type indicators. So create a new one. Select the CI type first, by the way. Okay. Then select a new one. Select a new CI type. Give it a name. Give it an identifier, which will automatically filled up. Make sure that you are selecting health indicator here, right? Then go to the next page. Define the states, which I've demonstrated yesterday, right? So you define dry as normal, wet as critical, no data as unknown. You use the same identifier for the three. So at this point, we're still okay. Go to rules. Okay. What will be okay? What will be the format value? Okay. If you're going to collect data for ops connector and you're collecting metrics, you can use this metric information here. Okay, but this is highly being used in APM product. In APM, you will see this being used a lot, not a lot in OBM. Okay, because APM has its own service health as well. So the problem to you guys is the interface is shared between the two products, So honestly speaking, there are areas of OBM that doesn't really make sense from an OBM standpoint alone. Okay? Unless in this case, in the format value, you're using operations connector to retrieve metrics. But in APM, it's heavily used. There are a lot of format metrics there, percentage, round off, and so on and so forth. Because APM is collecting metrics as part of its health indicator, right? So health indicator. So yesterday I've talked about what health indicator is and what you can use it for. Okay, I'm not going to repeat that anymore. Right? So you associate it with an eight with a CI type. Okay, and then the ATI hint. Right? So since this is OBM, when you generate the event, you have to make sure that you're using this ATI hints. Okay, and then verify. So maybe generate an event. And what's an HI? An HI is a health indicator. An, an HI is going to influence the status of the icon. Okay? Keep in mind that the event severity in OBM is not used to influence the status of the icon. Okay? So if you're used to using SolarWinds, if you're used to using NNM, not NNMI, the previous versions of NNM, if you're used to using OM, SolarWinds OM, NNM, the previous NNM version, not the I, if the event is red, the icon is red. Okay? In OBM, event severity does not influence the icon color. What influences the icon color is the health indicator. So to test your health indicator if it's working, okay, go to health view, verify if it is there. Okay. Then you might want to create a view. You might want to create a view specifically for that so you can view it better. So here you will see the health indicator, and you will see that this health indicator is not contributing to KPIs. Okay, it's not contributing to KPIs. Does that make sense? Okay, now what is key performance indicators? Key performance indicators is basically closer to your SLOs. Okay, let me show you something so you don't get confused what it is. Let me go back to APM here. So you're not looking at OBM, but rather you're looking at APM. In APM, if you go to admin, it's loading. In APM, if you go to admin, you will see you have two types: service health and service level management. You see that, right? So service health and service level management. If you have the license, if you have the license, you can go to service level management. I'm just showing this to you so you will have an idea. Okay. And in service level management, which is APM, you can define here agreements. You can define agreements here. You can create service level agreements or SLAs. You can create operational level agreement, which is OLAs. Okay, this is beyond the topic already, guys. I just want you to understand what you're up against. Okay, the most difficult part is configuring something and you don't know what it is for, right? So in SLM, if you have the license, you can have SLAs, OLAs, and underpinning contracts. SLA is you have a provider and you have a customer. both different companies. Okay? Underpinning contract is the same as SLAs. But normally underpinning contract is what you use if you're going to outsource some of the work. Okay? So to you, it's an underpinning contract. To the other party, it's an SLA. Does that make sense, right? So, for example, we'll need that later. Okay. I have provider one. Okay. Provider one enters an SLA agreement with customer one. Okay. So, provider one, okay, enters an underpinning contract, okay, with a vendor one. So from the point of view of provider one, the contract with vendor one is underpinning contract. From the point of view, right? From the point of view of vendor one, from the point of view of vendor one, okay, vendor one has an SLA agreement with, sorry, vendor one has an SLA agreement, that's right, with provider one from the point of view of vendor one, right? So you see here, the vendor one is on the left while P1 is on the right. So P1, as far as vendor one is concerned, is the customer, which is similar to this, honestly speaking. Okay? So from the point of view of provider one, it's an underpinning contract. So if you put underpinning contract here, your point of view is from provider one, not from vendor one. Okay? So when you're defining the underpinning contract, you have the start date, the end date, the tracking period, right? You've got your tracking period here. So I'll just put whatever here. You've got your tracking period, you have your targets, right? You have your targets. You click next. SLA, what's that? You need to provide the customer. Do we have, okay? SLA name is MTO. Okay. I just click next. This is where you provide the CI, right? So here you see the CI, the one that you offer. Okay. Then you have your CI service offerings, and in your service offerings you specify your configuration, and then you'll have your. This is what I'm after. In service level management, you have your indicators, your service level objectives. Okay. You have your KPIs. You have your KPIs. Okay. Then you can finish that. Can finish that, and in SLM, if you have the license to do so, if you have the license to do so, you will have your repositories here, right? So you have your KPIs here. Keep in mind that this is SLM. This is SLM. So I have my KPIs here, outage categories, calendars, okay, and then under service manager, okay, under service manager here, okay. Let's do that later. I don't need that, right? So I have under assignments, okay. I have my health indicator propagation rules, and then your data collectors or corrections, okay. So what I wanted to see is that you have your KPIs here. KPIs in SLM is monetary. This is your service level objectives. If you violate that, if you breach that, if the vendor breaches that, there will be penalty involved. So this is how a customer can monitor their agreement with a vendor, right? If you guys remember, originally DXC was part of HP. Remember that, right? So there was a merge that happened. So HP absorbed DXC as part of. It was one of the major. It was one of the major mergers and acquisition, particularly because of PNG, right? So PNG outsourced everything to. Anyway, that's a long story. But DXC became part of HP. Okay, and then it got split off later on. Okay, so DXC is a managed services provider, and it has a lot of customers. Okay, so DXC goes into an agreement with customers. So they have SLAs and so on. So the question is, how will the customers of DXC know that DXC is not in breach or DXC is in compliant with their agreements? So one way for DXC to do that is to use SLM, which in some occasions they're using, okay, and give the reports to customers, right? So that's an actual source. You're not going to cheat. You cannot cheat. Because if you say availability, when you talk about availability, right? How do you measure availability of a database? One way to measure a database availability is in Service Manager or ServiceNow. Okay? So if you send a ticket in Service Manager, that can be treated as unavailable. If you send a ticket to ServiceNow, that can be treated as unavailable. They have a rule there. Whenever a ticket is submitted to Service Manager based on their rules, that will be treated as unavailable. But you need to submit a ticket. Okay, you need to submit a ticket. In service level management in APM, you don't need to submit a ticket. Because what's the problem with a ticket? A ticket is a ticket. It's not metric based. So what that means is you're monitoring CPU utilization. If you think that's you're monitoring bandwidth, if you think it becomes unavailable, you still need to submit a ticket. In APM, you don't need to submit a ticket anymore because in APM, you're generating metrics in itself. So in APM, you can create an indicator. You can create an indicator. You can collect a metric and associate the metric to an indicator and put that in your contract, right? So you're monitoring availability. You're monitoring availability. You're pinging the services every 5 minutes. That's a metric right there. So you calculate that every 98%. Okay? So here you have your KPIs in contract. But that how do you know this is going to be calculated every quarter, every 6 months? But how do you know that you will not be in breach of that service level objectives? That's where service health comes in. Service health is going to make sure that it will steer you in compliance. So, service health is for the operations team to make sure that you will never violate what you have agreed to. So, in service health, you can go and create the same thing. In service health, now I'm in service health, there is also a repository for indicators in APM. This is in APM, guys, right? There's also a repository in APM here. So the repository, the KPIs in APM service health will definitely be more strict than the KPIs in service level management. Because supposedly the the OBM, or rather the service health KPIs, should steer you away from breaching your contract. Okay? So having said that, what about OBM? Well, OBM will need to follow what you have set in APM. So in OBM, you have a section there for service health for KPI definitions. So you might wonder, well, why do I need to have two? Because APM is metric based, OBM is event based. That's the primary reason why you need two. Okay? So if you go back here to the slide, that's what a key performance indicator basically means. Okay? Now, I think if you don't mind, I think I can finish this. I can finish KPIs in 10 to 15 minutes because I don't think it will make sense to go for to lunch now and then after lunch talk about for 15 minutes and then release you for your lab exercises. Okay? So let me try to do it in okay KPIs. So KPIs is basically a KPI is not defined for a CI type. Okay? If you want to define a KPI, first you have it's actually this is step one. This is step one. First you define KPIs in administration, service health, CI status calculation, KPI definitions. So you go there, KPI definitions, you add a new one or edit an existing one. Okay? So main settings, you give it a name, application, the calculation rule. How are you going to calculate the KPIs? You have the best status rule or 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 the worst status rule. So right now you're using the worst status rule, meaning to say if you have 10 elements, 9 of them are normal, one of them are is critical, what your KPI will use the critical, right? You can have averages if you like. Okay. For now, let's focus on the slide. Okay. The calculation order. If there is if there's a chance that there will be multiple KPIs that will match the event or the metric, you can calculate you can calculate them in the corresponding order. The left is the last, the right is the first. So meaning to say if you drag this over to the right, it will be executed first. If you drag this over to the left, it will be executed last. Display order, the same thing. Okay? So display order, the same thing. KPI parameters. Okay, so KPI parameters, ordering, uh, trend, right? So do you want service health to calculate the trend for you? So you will see that it's improving, it's not improving. It's like a credit score, right? Improving or not improving every time an event is generated. Okay. So after you do that, you go to step two. This is now on a different interface. You now go to administration, service health, status calculation, and KPI assignments. Okay. In the KPI assignments, you have to select the CI type. It's now it will now be associated with the CI type. You create a new one or edit an existing one. Okay. What is in your assignment? In your assignment, you give it a KPI configuration. Okay. You give it a name. So let's go here. Create a new one. Right. So we're now creating a humidity KPI. Okay. Give it a name, description. Okay. Then go to KPI configuration. In the KPI configuration, you specify the HIs that you will use. You can select one or more HIs for your KPI. Okay? This is when it becomes a little bit confusing. What's a KPI? What's the difference between a KPI and what's the difference between a KPI and an HI? An HI, guys, will give you a state. It will give you one state. Okay? A KPI is a calculation based on multiple HIs. Okay? So for example, blood pressure. I want to use blood pressure. For those who are young, you might have a difficulty understanding this. I don't wish that you ever encounter this, but if you get a little bit older, it might be easier for you to understand. Okay, but in blood pressure is a KPI. I will treat that as a KPI. Why? It is dependent on two HIs. The first HI is systolic value. Okay? The second HI is diastolic value. Okay? An HI therefore will only give you one state. Okay? An HI therefore will only give you one state. So a systolic, this is the 120 over 80. So if your diastolic, right? If your systolic is 120, your diastolic is 180, it will calculate your KPI is going to tell you that hey, you're normal. Okay? If your diastolic is 140, right? And your systolic is 140, your diastolic is 80, keep the KPI will calculate it again. It will call you pre-hypertensive, something like that. So you get the point here, right? So in real life, we're actually doing that. A KPI is a collection of multiple HIs. So if I will say I've got a CPU bottleneck KPI, okay? If I say I've got a CPU bottleneck KPI, I might use two HIs there. CPU util, okay? And CPU run queue, right? And something else. Maybe um system mode system mode to user mode ratio, something like that. So now I'm using three HIs for the CPU bottleneck KPIs. So you now have an idea somehow what it means, right? So you go here. So you can add as many HIs as you like. And then, okay, you save it, you save the button, add a KPI assignment, okay? It will now be complete, okay? And you verify the KPI. So now let me show you. You're ready for the lab exercises here, guys. But I just want to show you some of the things here. If you go to administration, let's go here. Go to administration, go to what are we discussing? Indicator, right? So go to indicator or KPI assignments. KPI assignments. KPI assignments is for the CI type. That's what we just discussed a while ago, right? So if you edit this, it will tell you the KPI is using uh, two HIs, and it's using worst status rule. It's using worst status rule. Okay. So over here you will see the rules. You will see the business rules. Some of them are for micro focus products, so don't touch them. Okay, but some of them are things that we regularly use, like for example, the worst status rule. Okay, so internally, the product has a Java code that calculates that. Okay, so you have the this is the Java class. It calculates that. So it will take the KPI will take all the HI status and it will get the worst child rule. So if I go back here, okay, in this particular example, I'm using a metric, right? This is a metric. If we're using APM, but what about if we're using OBM? In OBM, we don't have metrics. So we have events. Okay? So event, the HI will here will be critical. Okay? The ETI will be critical. CPU run queue. Okay? We don't have a metric, so we need an event for that. Okay? The ETI is normal. Okay? We don't have a metric here, so we generate another event for that. The ETI will be warning. So worst status rule calculation, we use the worst child rule, we use critical. Okay? We can also use best here. You can also use best here if you like. Average values, rather best rules. You can also go for average values. In my understanding, average values work something like this. Okay. So are you guys hungry? Give me 3 more minutes. We're done. Okay. So this is event one, event two, and event three. Okay. So this is critical, major, minor, warning, normal. So this is critical, major, okay? Uh Critical major, minor, warning, normal. Okay? So imagine event 1 is critical. So you have to put a 1 here. Imagine event 2 is minor, so you put a 1 here. Okay? Imagine event 3 is warning, so you put a 1 here. Everything to the right of the 1 is 0. Everything to the sorry. Everything to the right of the 1 is 1. Okay? This is the problem if you're hungry. Okay? So sorry about that. Right? So everything to the right of the 1 is a 1. Everything to the left of a 1 is a 0. Okay? And then you add it all up. This is 3, this is 3, this is 2, this is 1, this is 1. And then you average it, right? So you average it, the average will be going to match whatever is in your configuration there. Okay? So that's how you create your KPI assignments, and your KPI will be attached to that particular configuration. Okay? So in terms of your lab exercises, guys, you're okay with the labs. So I was able to to show you everything that you need in order for you to survive your lab exercises. What I haven't discussed yet is this part. So we will talk about this after labs. This will take another maybe 20 minutes or so, right? So we will talk about this after your lab exercises. It's important as well. It's important as well. So I'll put a timer. Okay. So what's the plan? Let's go to lunch. Let's limit it to 50 minutes this time. Okay. And then for the lab exercises, it's a long lab exercise, right? So I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I think you will need about 70 minutes in total. So this will be what, um 100 and 120 minutes, right? So I'm going to I'm going to go to lunch and come back. So when we come back, you will be doing your lab exercises. Okay? So I'll put 120 minutes here. So I'll see you in 50 minutes. Enjoy your lunch.